2015 quarter-final of the Rugby World Cup, Twickenham, it's pouring down. Yeah. Struggling against Scotland a little bit. Talk me through the last 5 minutes of that game.
Well, this is it, right? I think we used to joke about this because you just said it was pouring down, right? So since I'd started coaching in Australia, whether it be with the Waratahs or the Wallabies, I had not coached a game in the rain. It had never rained once. So once, there was one game we played South Africa at Suncorp and it rained all day, but then half an hour before the game it stopped raining. So it had never actually rained, not in an overseas trip, not ever in a game. And we used to joke about it all the time. So we're the dry weather football kings because we never had to play in the wet. So of all the times for it to come bucketing down, that was it, in that game. But that game was bizarre because obviously we'd had a hugely difficult pool, emotionally as well, being in a pool with England and Wales and Fiji and Uruguay. We had to put so much into that, and all types of things happened. Injury, suspension, and the wear and tear of getting through those games. So, and I had them on the up the whole way because obviously the goal was to win the pool. So I knew it couldn't just keep going up the whole time. So we sort of had to dip a little bit mentally. I gave a bit of room that week to dip at the start of the week just to have a bit of time and obviously that's no disrespect to the game that was in front of us, but I just had to look out for how our players were. There's no point in getting all the way and then not being able to finish on it. So, but in that game, we were flying. We were scrappy, but we'd scored 5 tries. I think we were behind. We'd scored 5 tries to 3. So we weren't kicking goals, obviously, and we were giving away a lot of penalties, and then with the intercept in the rain, that got us to 5 tries, 3 and behind. And so it was like, okay, this is not going the way we planned, but there's got to be a way out of it. Take it back now, and this is where the key moment happens, I suppose. And it's a credit to this fella because I asked him to make a high pressure decision, and he hadn't had a lot of experience in coaching at all. So I think Bernard had missed all his goals in the first half, or I'm not sure exactly how many. And I went to Chris Malone, who we brought as the kicking coach, who was coaching at Sydney Uni, and he hadn't coached at that level. This was his first go at it, but he's a good fella, and you can trust him. That's very important. And so I said to him straight away at half time, is this guy going to kick in the second half? Is he going to put one through the middle of the poles? Or isn't that how you guys practice? Aim and go through the middle, or do they all go to the side? What's the story? We had a bit of a joke, but he knew I was serious about it. I said, we changed him up because we had a few other kickers. And he said, no, let me talk to him at half time. I'll tell you as soon as we go back out if he's going to keep kicking or not. And when we went back out, I said to him, well, what are we doing with the goal kicking? And he said, no, he's got it. I'm 100% sure about it. And he missed the first one, I think, in the second half as well. And I looked at him, gave him the dirty look, and he said to me, don't worry, he's okay. And sure enough, and then you can say, well, he should have kicked the earlier ones, but that's what happens. It's about not, making the right decisions. And, and Chris, I was so impressed with the way he handled that day, because at the end, that was probably, even though that got us over the line, the Crusaders game with the Waratahs, that was probably the highest. I don't know what he's ever said, but that's probably the most pressure on a kick, because for everything we'd achieved so far, that could have all gone down the drain if he didn't put that over. And, look, I've said it before, I'm not one of those guys who, is looking up for divine intervention very often, but, my father, he passed, I think in 2002 he passed, and he loved his footy, right? And I looked up to, just before he kicked the goal and said, mate, if this stuff's real and you're ever getting involved, this is the time to do it right now. You know what I mean? Wow. Get involved. So, because we just felt like we'd done so much, and I don't think we really deserved to lose that game either. We played good enough to get that many tries, but that's not the game, you know. You've got to be able to finish off. And it was controversial too as well at the end. But he held his nerve so well, Foley. And what I really liked about that game, and if you watch the reel, after they kicks the goal, and the post, so he kicked the goal. There was a kick-off, if I'm not wrong, afterwards.
Yeah. Seconds or so.
But then if you watch the way players reacted afterwards, there was just a certainty. No celebrations, anything like that. I saw them all go to Foley, and there's some really good vision of it, of how they knew the circumstances completely, but they still want to acknowledge that guy did an amazing thing under a heap of pressure, heap of heat, for his team. And that was the way that 215 team worked. Everything they did was for each other. They wasn't like best friends network, but they respected each other so much that on the field, everything was for each other, so they knew it. Yeah.
You mentioned it was a bit of a controversial ending. I think it was Craig Joubert with that penalty. You must get asked about it by Scottish people, I suppose.
No, you don't get asked about it by Scottish people, you get told about it by Scottish people, right? So, look, mate, it's 50-50 at the end of the day. A ref makes a call, and that's the way it is, There's plenty gone against you and plenty gone for you. And I think, like I said, at the end wash-up, you score 5 tries to 3. I know that goal kicking and penalties are all a part of it. Then you've got to make sure you win somehow, and we did.
From my memory, with a slim lead, I think they took the kick-off after they scored. They've got a 2-point lead or something. They threw long to the line-out in the rain with time running out, and I think that's where the turnover came.
Yeah, it was something like that. It bounced around at the back of a line-out.
Yeah. Decisions like that, just go short and play the...
Oh, no, mate, I think you got to back yourself with whatever you do, You can't say, take the conservative route. Not when you're going, I don't see it as a simple formula like that. You've got to go with what you're certain with. And if they were certain with that play at the time, then go for it. Don't be... The minute you start going, I'll only play this thing when it suits because I'm worried it might go wrong, well, then don't bother playing it at all. But they obviously knew that was maybe, I can't remember if we had them under any heat. And there's no doubt we would have jumped front and middle there and tried to put as much pressure as we could on that line out. So, their back was probably their place that was open, and that happens sometimes. And sometimes it's just a whisker of difference. Rugby games, even when they finish with different margins, can be so fine line moments, sliding doors moments that change the game, and then you've got to be able to wrest that back somehow. But it was a great part of the storytelling, around that whole tournament.